Hey, Facebook world, it's Jillian. So, this is a subject matter that I have gone over a little bit, but not really, over the last 4 years. Because if I'm going to provide some kind of aim to be some kind of projected world that I see as a balanced world, I've got to be able to find the balance between community and people adapting to whatever's going on, whether it's weather or something else. 500 million people in this world, that's a lot of people still, regardless of even if we get there anytime soon or it's way down the road. But I am projecting that I'm going to be around for a while, as well as a bunch of other people are going to be around for a while, especially if they're doing J juice, Jilly juice. Sorry, I'm just looking at somebody walking down the street. I'm just being nosy. So, anyways, and so how is a balance? What does a balanced world look like when people's emotions are balanced? And you'd have to know what, if you want to know what a balanced emotions are, then you have to know what imbalanced emotions are, because that's the only way you're going to be able to juggle the two. You don't want to go to any extreme. I watched a movie, a science fiction movie last night, which is just so like perfect. And even had the word equilibrium in it. It's called Equilibrium, and it was on Cinemax. So it wasn't even a movie that I chose. It was just that a movie that I was streaming through. I was just going through the channels and everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch this. We're gonna see what they say about equilibrium. And it was like right on point. Equilibrium is like when you have dead emotions. But that was the name of the movie, and this movie was set like the background was like so dark. It looks like a very dystopian, almost like Star Wars, Darth Vader type of feeling to it. And yeah, it definitely had a totalitarian regime type of tone. And so, but their whole thing is that they want a world where there's no emotions, no hate, no love, no like, no nothing. You're just like not emoting, you're not going up and down. You don't even have a pet because pets elicit emotion. And that's what I'm thinking like yesterday, like, oh, Sugar, my dog, she is like super emotional. She's a dog. Dogs have oxytocin. They bring up the oxytocin in you, right? And so even in this movie, dogs weren't even allowed. It was like, a sense violation. And I'm like, sense violation? And when they were saying it really quickly, I think they're like, or a sense offender. And I'm like, sense offender? It almost sounds like sex offender, but no, they actually have a word in that movie called sense offender. You're offending the senses, your feelings, they always measure the feelings. And so now, I'm not saying that when you're on the J juice, you lose all sense of feeling. You don't have any emotions. You're just like, kill or be killed type of thing. No, but that was the premise of that movie, Equilibrium, was the fact that if you were caught being violated as a sense offender, you would be destroyed. And it showed his wife actually was a sense offender. Somebody in his world was a sense offender, and they were destroyed. And so, no, that's not the world that I'm trying to project. No. But you have to understand what imbalanced emotions are. And that's the thing, is understand, because we have been taught for so many years that when you pick a side, it will elicit all sorts of emotions, because if you don't pick this side, then there's going to be feelings of whatever, anger, disgust, happiness, sadness, whatever. You can go through the gamut of emotions when you choose a side. And and then you become easily controlled. So that's the thing, is that when you're bred to be an emotional sensing creature, on a very triggered emotional creature, it is a source of control. And so I even noticed that the like love, like I always had this difficulty with people just throwing love, love, love. I'm like, come on, you know, because I knew it's a sense of a type of another control, manipulation, whatever. And but I don't totally say that love cannot exist. Okay, yes, I have love for my dog. Okay, I have love for my husband. We have respect first, but I have love for my friends. Does that first and foremost? No, respect is. The love is just like, okay, There's just an extra where I feel that they're a little bit higher on the scale than some stranger on the street. I would save my friends before I save a stranger if I was forced to choose between. Okay? All right. I mean, but that just shows hierarchy. That's really all love shows is hierarchy. But if you get to know somebody, then they could be in the same hierarchy. And then if you get to know everybody, then you can love everybody, and hey, that's fine. All right. So, but really, it's where when you have to choose is where love comes in, and that will make the ultimate choice for you, I guess. That's how I see love, is that it is a hierarchy status. So, so, but I noticed that these emotions, love and hate, and all this other stuff, is used in therapies. It's always being controlled, or people are trying to find it, and they're looking to bond, and they're it's like this energy that gets expended, which, okay, if you have the energy to expend all these emotions, then you better be able to afford it. And that's kind of like the same thing with thermodynamics and jelly juice and healing. Or if you're not on jelly juice, can you afford to be uh, doing all these things that are emoting, you know, taking up energy, and you're not replacing it? And that's the aging process, is when the body isn't able to replace that which is being used, and emotions are one of them. Thinking, oh God, all the different, the things that you do on an everyday basis take so much, but emotions are the hugest things. And since we're not doing a bunch of stuff, like we're not really doing a lot of social gatherings, we're not hanging out so much, we're always on the computer, and there's a lot of emotions on the computer, and that then causes a lot of stress, and it does drain people. Okay? I mean, you see even with the presidents, when they go through their tenure, they become gray at the end. You see Obama, he came in as a young dude and he left office after 8 years gray, because yes, even though he was probably doing majorly heavy lifting and all that stuff, the stress of having to run a country, the stress of dealing with stuff, the stress of emotions, when you're dealing with people who have so many needs, it's like you're constantly taking in this louche energy, and as a president, you can't put boundaries down because you have to deal with everybody. Okay? And so it does take a lot out of you when you deal with emotional people. So the presidency, I could probably give the best example, because they really can't put down boundaries. They have to face everything the nation is dealing with what their family's dealing with whatever. And we as citizens have more freedom to put boundaries down, but when you're in public office, there's really no boundaries. Really, I mean, there is and there isn't. Okay, I mean, believe me, I don't even like going on Google and Googling myself, because I hate all that louche energy that I have to deal with. And what is louche? See, now I use this word louche, which I learned in the energy world from people in the beginning when I first started my group, and I was giving away this information, but I was still in research status. I was still needing to be fed the energy to motivate me, to incentivize me, and to grab bits and pieces of information to be able to formulate my protocol. Hey, Krista. And so I want you guys to know that louche is an actual word. It's a new age term applied to energy produced by human beings that other entities used to feed from. It is also used to refer to the energy that is produced by suffering that entities feed. So it's a type of suffering. Okay, so you can have emotions. I mean, emotions are not horrible in of itself, but it's what the type of emotions where it's being triggered from. Hold on. Sugar, come here. Come on. Oh, why are you barking? You're on the bed. I don't know what she's. Okay. All right. So emotions aren't bad, but it's the emotions, where the emotions are coming from. And when someone gets into a situation where they're at a disadvantage, or they're having problems, they've attracted a mate that responded to their suffering. Okay? And that's kind of like all these archetypes. No, go lay down, sugar. Go lay down. Lay down. But all these archetypes is that there is a role that everybody plays, and then people act out these specific roles, they attract certain things, and then what happens is there's very predictable results. There's very predictable results, because of the louche energy, the suffering energy that attracted them, that bonded with them to begin with. And so what I think in the future, way down the road when we're not dying and reproducing, we're going to have a different way of projecting energy. It's not going to be from love, 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 or hate, 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 or anger, or depression, or resentment, or anxiety, or sadness. It's going to be something where it is like an energy, and this is where I have to figure out an energy that has a common foundation. And right now, we're all in a common foundation trying to save the world. Like, we're all of us, every single one of us that are on Facebook, you're either trying to save your family and make sure that your kids are going to be okay in this world, or yeah, you have a specific hobby, maybe you're doing something, but maybe it's from the standpoint, from the perspective of saving the world in some way. What if we didn't have to save the world? What kind of emotions would be around if we weren't trying to save somebody else? We weren't trying to make something better. We weren't really too much involved with any other person, except for when, if let's say I learned to play an instrument and I get taught by somebody, and they had enough emotion in them to teach, and then I had enough emotion in myself to be able to play the music with feeling, because that's what music is, comes from feeling. Art comes from feeling, but the feelings aren't from suffering. So that's the distinction that I had to figure out, because I'm like, we don't want unemotional people, but we don't want the emotions coming from suffering. Okay, so that is a difference. And that's the difference right now, is like, is your emotions coming from suffering, or is it coming from the fact that you're just now this whole person? And you'll know, if you're not on J Juice, I'm going to say it again, if you're not on J Juice, your emotions are coming from suffering. Okay, I'll just put it right there, plain and simple, because you're on a death trajectory. You are in the you're in the so below world, suffering from dying and reproducing, from all this stuff in the world that you are so emotionally attached to. And then then what happens is people are trying to save the world, save the people. And I said earlier when I posted this thing about healers, energy healers, and people making assumptions about what person went through and why they're like, oh, this person's so detached and so like independent because she was like, left as a baby on her own and no mother was helping her or whatever, right? And I'm saying, when you're in the so below world, yes, when you're on a death trajectory, you are coming from a suffering. Your emotions are coming from suffering. I don't care. And I can make that assumption. You know why? Because I know, because you're on a death trajectory. You cannot possibly elicit anything that's balanced. When somebody is dying and reproducing at the macro level, they are not balanced. I'm going to say that right then and there. If you are dying and reproducing, if you are aging and degrading, you're not on J-Juice at the level that you should, you haven't switched your trajectory, you're still on that track of death, okay? You still deal with all your different issues and you haven't seen a reversal and you're constantly taking the antibiotics. Yes, the louche, the energy that you're emitting is a suffering energy, and it attracts predators. And then yes, it's a great marketing thing. Energy healers love that louche energy. They love the suffering energy. Psychics, medical doctors, MLMers, psychologists, psychiatrists, political candidates, science scholars, okay, especially in the medical world, spiritual people love and they thrive on the louche energy, the suffering energy. So now what I'm going to propose, when you're on a life trajectory in the as above world, what kind of energy are you going to emit? Well, that's the thing, is that the energy that you emit is not going to be from suffering. You will still have emotions. Yes, you're not going to be like Equilibrium, where everything is dark and dystopian and no emotions and it's kill or be killed. No, that's totally anti-life. That's like the extreme side of somebody with no emotions. I'm talking about balance. I'm talking about the energy that you emit is not from suffering. It's from a balanced point perspective. You're not angry. You're not frustrated. You're none of those things, because it's just life. If you didn't have to put a judgment call on something, then it's just life. It's just a mechanism. It's just things that happen that you just have to deal with and strategically make sure you meet whatever objective you have. That's it. There's no emotion needs to be put on it. Okay. When somebody does something that is very like cool, you say, "Hey, good job," and that's it. There's no emotion like, "Oh well, being all like you're trying to hide there." Like I don't know. I think in the next world when people are allowed to go outside the lines of expectation and they're allowed to invent things without somebody saying you can't, you won't, you shouldn't, I don't think it can happen, whatever, which those come from suffering, that it'll be a very different world to live in. Yes, psychic vampires, John. It'll be a totally different world. But that's the type of world that we live in right now, where somebody is always trying to break somebody down, say they can't do this, they shouldn't do this, it's not possible. That's loose psychic energy. That's psychic vampire energy, as John would say. That's like, energy stealing. That's like sucking the life and the possibility out of somebody when you say they can't do this, they shouldn't do this, they're not able to, it's impossible. Okay? And so I've had to get away from those type of people. I've had to get away from those type of people, and a lot of them are my trolls, yes. Some of them are my own family members that I had to actually extricate myself with, because I would try to derive some kind of balanced energy and it was never balanced. But then maybe I wasn't balanced either. So I have a lot of responsibility too. You know, I didn't separate myself when I should. And so, that's what I see in the new world, is that the energy that you emit was not going to be derived from suffering. It's going to be derived from somebody whole, somebody balanced, somebody really just exploding with possibility. And they're not always reacting to somebody else's louche. And that's so when you saw how I was needed to be fed, so to speak, earlier on in the JJ's protocol with Dr. Phil and all the different trolls and all the articles and all that stuff. I needed that energy. I needed to convert that energy. Believe me, I don't want to have that kind of energy ever again. That's too much. I was rich a couple years ago. Not, I mean, monetarily, I was okay. I was okay. Believe me, I'm not making that kind of money like I did back then, and it wasn't a whole lot, but it was just like a whole spike of like people, either buying the book or buying into my group that I had on the forum or on the internet. And so, but I also had so much people just giving me their energy, whether it was private messages, whether it was the articles, whether it was the trolls, whether it was, Dr. Phil's crowd, and then all the different people, the court case and everything. I'm telling you, all that energy, I was freaking rich. But I was rich off of the louche, the suffering emotions. And that, believe me, that isn't really a satisfying richness, okay? Can we be rich without having to rely on the suffering louche emotion? And that's what currency is today, because currency right now with the money is, a lot of it's based upon somebody else's suffering. I mean, look, people who are in the energy healing world, guess what? They're making money off the suffering of people out there. In the medical world, okay, they're making money off the suffering of their clients. Those that are in naturopathic and homeopathics, that's the louche energy that they just derive so much. That's what that keeps them going. Do you think they have any incentive to stop the louche energy, to stop the suffering? No, it's what feeds them. I've had naturopathics tell me I wouldn't quit my job as a naturopathic applying all the different antibiotics because I have to pay my bills. That was told to me. But that energy that they're getting, that currency, is coming from the suffering. So I knew I had to cover this, because what triggered this was when I saw somebody post how they really hate these egotistical people who have a lot of a following, and they're like, this person is egotistical, they think they're so full of themselves, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, dude. And so I know this guy's triggered, like super triggered. So I'm just like, and I knew this guy was probably gonna delete me as soon as after I commented, but I don't know who this guy is anyways. And so I said, hey, you you follow them because you like what they have to say, and in a world of triggered people, if you're getting upset about their information, then why don't you just unfollow them? Why do you have to respond and make them be what you want them to be? Why do they have to cater to you? Why should they have to uh, modify their message so that way it's more palatable for you? Like, who are you? You know, if you like their standpoint, then yeah, they're going to have an ego day or not. Maybe their whole time is ego. Okay, who cares? Some people can't handle my energy. They like what I have to say, but they can't handle my energy, so they unfollow me and say, "Hey, you know, I'm going to see you later, but I love your energy." But I love your protocol, but you're a little bit too much. And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. As long as we do the protocol, I don't really care." You know, I want them to have a good life. Even if they don't like how I deliver the message, at least they got the message. So something I did right. So, yeah, so when you get offended by somebody, it's because, you know, you're also suffering too, or it wouldn't even matter to you. It just like you just say, okay, well, if I don't want to suffer, then I'll just turn them off. Do I need to change them? No. You know, but if you're in a relationship with them, then you have to choose. Do you want to stay with them or do you want to change them? And if they don't want to change, then what's the point? Then you leave. Okay, you can try to change somebody, but you're really gonna try to, like, I follow Luke Radowski. He's a trip. I met him actually personally when I was over there in Portugal. He's the BR change dude, and you know he's part of the anarchist whatever. I like him because I've said some things on there where I'm surprised he hadn't deleted me, but you know he's just like he takes everything for what it is. I mean he has people on there talking smack, and he just takes it, and he's able to give it back too. And he could be a little egoist too. He could be a little bit over the top, but who cares? That's the charm of it. Okay? And I appreciate because that's who he is. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think that, you know, he's just entertaining and that's what I view him as. I'm not trying to make him be anything that he doesn't want to be. He's just Luke Radowski. You know, just like Alex Jones. You think Alex Jones would be Alex Jones if he wasn't like, you know, some crazy contentious I don't know, how do I even explain him? Over the top conspiracy fearmonger? No, if he was like I don't know, Mr. Rogers, he wouldn't have the following he has because Mr. Rogers was like he was made for kids, okay, not too emotional because kids would be like holy shit, right? If they had Alex Jones as Mr. Rogers. So everybody has their place, and there's a reason why they do what they do. It gets people emotions going. It's a marketing thing. But here's the thing with those that do those type of marketing things, can they afford to be doing it on a daily basis? And if they can, they better be doing J juice because guess what? The world, the energy stealers will eat them alive. And look, he's aging and degrading. He's getting bigger and bigger. And, you know, you might have seen him. You know, maybe he might have slimmed down. I haven't seen him recently. But I mean, if you're going to be using your emotions as a ticket, as a meal ticket, then you better be able to replace the energy that you're expending, bringing up emotions in others, and then be that emotional vampire. So that's the thing. What we have to differentiate when it comes to love, hate, and all that stuff. I mean, really, the new world that I see, especially if you're on the Jilly Juice, hate wouldn't even come up. Hate or anger or I mean sadness might because yeah people might die in your world and that may happen just because of what and I don't know what the person would die from in the new world that I'm trying to project, but you know stuff happens, you know, a tree falls down that you don't even know, you know, someone did something that by accident, an accident happened, accidents happen all the time, right? So yeah, so a bit of sadness, but it's very short lived. It's not something that's going to cause you suffering over a long period of time. See, with the Jilly Juice you'll have emotions, but they're not going to be taking over your body, mind, and spirit. It's not going to be something that you'll be living from. It'll be a very, very brief moment where, okay, it's upset of homeostasis, and then you recalibrate, and then you're like, okay, you know that this is just part of life. It's whatever, things happen, and you move on. And so that's what I project for those that stay on the Jilly Juice, that reverse the aging process, finally switch tracks from the death trajectory to a life trajectory. Then the emotions they emit will not be from suffering, okay? Will not be from suffering. And you won't even notice the emotions that they emit because it's not going to be all over the plastered unless they're in some kind of job, which is like selling insurance, by the way. Like what kind of emotional job could you say, okay, that this person would be like like I would say an appropriate job for the new world that isn't at the expense of somebody suffering? Well, marketing anything. Maybe you're making a calculator and you want to sell a calculator. And how would you sell a calculator? Well, this is the best calculator in the world. Why is it the best? Because it's solar and you don't have, and it glows in the dark, and it's made from, I don't know, beech wood and coconut, and after, a certain amount of time it disintegrates. And then why would it disintegrate? Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Whatever selling point you have or you want, it's biodegradable or something. So, and then you'd find, but then, it's like if you're not a non-emotional, if you're not really a huge, like if you're not suffering from something, would you be able to pull out emotions to sell a calculator? Well, yeah, I think you'd find strategy. I mean, the Hollywood artists out there, the actors and all that stuff, they use the emotions from their own suffering to be able to bring to life, the part that they're in. So it becomes, it's more, so they can sell it. I've seen actors where they really couldn't sell their position as that character. You're just like, dude, I'm watching a B movie. But then, and that's probably why MK Ultra and all of those really mind control stuff where they put these actresses through hell, where they are suffering, where they were abused, sexual abuse, all these different abuse, they were tortured, and then they were reprogrammed to be able to go and play these parts, and they were able to really play these parts very well because they had a place to reach from, which was the suffering that they experienced as a child as well as maybe as an adult. And why you see some of these Hollywood actresses just kind of self-implode, because all of that programming finally just did them in. If they ever did the Jilly Juice, they could say, okay, that was what would need to happen to be able to fulfill whatever purpose I had as far as Hollywood, and now I'm on to a different trajectory. Okay, so, but would we have to sell anything in the near future? I mean, what would you have to sell? I mean, if 500 million people were scattered across the globe and we had self-sufficient, self-contained, little communities where everything was pretty much self-maintained, and all you had to do was just be a peaceful citizen and not kill and not hurt, and just do what you got to do and watch movies, and you had some like people like in Europe would make movies for the people in America and that was their job, and people in America would be able to build all the houses across the world for 500 million people. So every single little pod of people and across the world would have their specific job to maintain the infrastructure all over the world. And then every so often they come together and be like, hey, what's going on? Well, this part of the globe is doing this part of the globe is doing that. We need to have more PVC and more fiber optics over here, and we need to have, and then if there was accidents that happened, then they'd have the brood mares, or they'd have the sperm and the egg already like in a freezer, and they were put into a test tube, and then you have a human that would be fed Jilly Juice and other foods, and they'd be a very balanced human, and they would then take the place of someone who happened to die from an accident. Now that is major science fiction, yes, but that's kind of what I envision in the world when you're on a life trajectory, is that, yeah, there's no suffering in the humanity, no suffering with animals, except for the fact that, yes, we need food, and we have to do it very humanely, and livestock would have to be done, but it wouldn't be through like the way it's mass produced at this point, and these animals do suffer. We don't want that. We don't want to have anybody suffer. Suffering is not the point of the new world. Okay? But here's the thing, can you make a meat that has everything, but it's not from an animal? And I don't know, maybe biotech, maybe that's what Bill Gates is doing. He's trying to create meat that isn't from an animal suffering, which I think is honorable. I think in a lot of ways, I really don't want any animal to suffer. Would I eat my animal? No. But I know we need to have the amino acids. We need to have that very densely packed, advanced data pack of food, which what meat offers. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future, but this is just, so I have to kind of verbalize what louche energy is. It's a suffering energy. It's emotions, suffering emotions. You could still have emotions of a little bit of anger, a little bit, but it would be very brief. It wouldn't be something that you would blast. Like, people should not know how you feel. That's the thing, is that your emotions really, it's like your underwear. Are you going to expose your underwear to everybody in the world? No. Because then you're showing your cards. Then you are now signaling a predator to come in and take advantage. Because let me tell you, that's how predators find the weakest link, is they find the suffering animal, the weakest link in the weakest link in the chain, and they take them out. They take them out of the gene pool. Okay? So yes, so suffering emotions is what signals the predators to go and cannibalize you. And so, you know, if in the new world, on the jelly juice world, your suffering is not going to be really anything that you're going to put on display. It's going to be like your underwear. It's your business. It's no one else's business what kind of emotions. Okay? I mean, that's between you and whoever else because those emotions are derived from something, right? If someone makes you happy, sad, mad, glad, whatever, great. But that's between you and that other person. But is it something that you just advertise to the world? Well, why would you advertise it? Well, because I want to bring joy to the world. Okay, what the world can bring joy to themselves. Why do you have to impose your, you know? And so that's where it comes down to. And I know it sounds, you know, weird. Like, why would you say that you shouldn't bring joy to the world? Does the world need joy, or can they make their own joy? But why do you need to impose that? Because then, from the opposite of joy is sadness. So then there's that split, that dichotomy. Can't we just be even, but not unemotional, but not emotional, but just be even, be pleasant, productive, harmonious, peaceful? You know, it can be jokester like John, which I don't. That's fine. I got guys on my Facebook that just, oh my god, they play these face app videos, and this dude, he looks kind of Hispanic, and he's putting his face on these music videos of girls that are like wearing hardly anything. I'm just like, oh my god. And so I bust out laughing a lot because I have a lot of people that I do follow that are more joyous than not, and that's fine. If that's what they want to admit to the world, okay, fine. But it's like, you know, I mean, if that's your role in life is to be the court jester, okay, great. Everybody has a role, right? But is it coming from suffering or is it coming from balance? But is it my place? No. But really, when you want to look at where your emotions derive from, understand that there is like the as above and so below. And so the differentiation between emotions of people is where it's derived from. Okay? And so that's the whole thing with louche energy. So yeah, I'm going to find a way to articulate that in my book. Because that's really what I want, you know, because I'm trying to be an example of the new world, whatever that is. And so, and if I can do it, then anybody can do it. And we can be very peaceful in our own little pods, bonding appropriately, but not bonding so much where we lose who we are. Okay. Bye.